Can you tell me what comics have you been reading lately?
Yeah, so I've been reading a bunch of different like eclectic stuff. For my mainstream kind of comic books, I've been getting into the Ghost Machine stuff, and I've really been digging Rook Exodus. That's been like my favorite one. Got it right here, issue number two. Yeah, I mean, I love Jason Fabok's art, and I love Jeff Johns as a writer. He was like one of my favorites growing up. So, I mean, those two together like an all-star team, and like this book is just so full of imagination and like new concepts and like just really awesome art. It's like the stuff that made me want to draw comics when I was a kid. So like this is I would high recommend for people to check it out. Have you read any of the Ghost Machine stuff?
I'm completely caught up on everything. Yeah, I'm
Nice.
really enjoying all three books so far, and I'm looking forward to Hyde Street coming out in another month or so. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting what they're doing with that company because it's almost like an Image 2.0, you know, like it's really cool to see everything they're doing. Let me see what else am I reading. I've been getting into like manga a lot recently and like manhwa, like the Korean version of manga. And one of the books that my friend just got me and it's really good. I just read it like earlier this week is Solo Leveling. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't read that one
Yeah,
yet.
it's cool. So it's yeah, I believe it's Korean. So it reads left to right. So it's not like manga that reads right to left. And it's in color too, like the insides.
Oh,
But
cool.
it's really it's like it. How would I describe it? It's like a fantastical world, and there's um, not too much is explained in this first volume, but it's like there's these gates that open up in the world, and monsters come through, and basically people have this job to go in there and like kill the monsters from them coming into their world, and it's very video game like, and the protagonist is this character who's like a very low level, kind of like barely strong enough to do the job kind of character, and at the end of the first book, his life something happens where his life sort of gets changed around, and he starts seeing like video game menu screens like your goals for today are to do 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, run 10K, you know, and you get stronger. And as he completes these things, he starts getting stronger and leveling up. And he sees this sort of like video game kind of like board from like an RPG where it's like, oh, my stats are increasing and my strength is going up and my intelligence and my inventory and like, and so it helps him in his quest now to like fight monsters. I'm not quite sure where it's going, like what the pop-up menus are, like if it is if he is like actually a video game character that like we don't know, like I don't know that yet because I haven't gotten that far, but it's this cool blending of like sort of fantasy and like the tropes of like RPG video games, which is something I really like. So I think that was a cool concept, and the art's really cool. So
Yeah, I don't know. Um, I don't know what they call it in the comic book world, but in novels, there's a new category now called lit RPG, and it's
okay,
all that kind of thing where it's like characters are somehow in like a video game world, and they literally have menus, and they get points, and they do what just like video game or any
yeah,
RPG, right? Um, and so it's you at first you have to you're like, well, this is clearly like obviously fake, right? Because that's not a thing. But then you realize, well, I read tons of fantasy, and that's all fake. So like, well, let me just extend my boundaries a little further and push it
yeah,
into the video game world, and then it gets really fun. There's one series of novels called Dungeon Crawler Carl, which are fantastic, and actually has a kind of an interesting premise that makes that reality seem plausible and not just a completely made up thing. Um, and the audiobooks are fantastic. Like the reader does a really dynamic job of all the voices and stuff. So yeah, if you like that in comic form and you ever listen to audiobooks, check out Dungeon Crawler Carl, because I think you'll really appreciate it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of that in manga. Like that time I got reincarnated as a slime, like that one is
hmm
also sort of like that. And there's so many others, but they are just fun to sort of lose yourself in.
yeah, for sure. I'm definitely gonna check that out. You said Dungeon Crawler Carl was the book
Yeah.
series, right? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
because I love like reading like actual books too. So like that's that. I'm definitely gonna check that out for sure. Yeah. Let me see what else. So I mean, I another manga that I was reading is Vagabond. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, so that's on my list to buy possibly this week if they have it at the shop, because Ryan Stegman
Nice.
actually just talked about that. I had him on my last episode and he recommended it, and I love samurai stuff, so I'm like, "Oh, I have to check this out." And there's
Do,
beautiful hardcovers of it too. So,
yeah, no, I highly recommend it. I'm only on volume two, but it is the art is so good. It's by Takahiko Inoue, and like it's so much dynamic, and like you said, it's historical. It's about Miyamoto Musashi, so it's like I don't know how accurate it is, but it's based on his life, you know. So it's like a fictionalized version of his life, and it's all about like samurai and like Bushido, and the art is like so detailed, but also so hyper dynamic and like filled with movement. It's one of those things that really inspiring to me. That like is one of those. It's funny you mentioned Ryan Stegman actually because I was working on Vanish for him last year when I first discovered the book, and it was like actually a big inspiration, like how I was approaching Vanish. So that's actually kind of funny that he had mentioned that. It's funny that we independently like this book at the same time. Let
Yeah.
me see what else I got. I want to give a shout out to a couple creator-owned books that I recently picked up on the convention circuit. One's called Project Analysis by a writer named Paul Thayer, and it's a cool sort of reimagining of like superheroes as like government agents and like how like a rogue faction of them kind of like disbanding from the government and the government making a new faction to take down the bad ones. It's a very cool art style, very like it's got like it's like it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, but like mature, if that makes sense. Like kind of like Invincible, like in that kind of vein. And another creator owned book is called Tragedy, from a writer named Phil Russert, and this is really cool too because it's like it's a vigilante, like think like she meets like Nightwing, like it's a female assassin, um, and she's also like a superhero, and she's dealing with like being in the vigilante kind of space, and he's a really up and coming writer, and he's put a lot of it out. Like this is like a really thick book, so just want to give a shout out to these two because these are on my pile of two reads that I'm really excited about. What are some of the books you're reading right now that are like really popping off for you?
Well, I mean, so a book that's currently being published is Transformers is just always the top of my pile whenever that comes out. That book is just so good. I can't. I just a perfect score
Yeah.
in every regard, like the story, the art, the characterization, the emotion, everything. It's just peak comics for me right now.
I've been
Have
hearing
you
that a
been reading
lot.
that?
I haven't read it yet, but it's like on my list of things to pick up. I'm like really behind with like like new stuff coming out. Like I'm usually picking up. I know it's like bad like to pick up trades, but like I'm just so behind with like stuff I'm reading. But that's like definitely on my list because I heard that whole Skybound thing, like the GI Joe and the Transformers, is like awesome. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited with the new GI Joe series too, with Tom Riley drawing it. Like that's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, so they've done 4 miniseries now, and I guess there's still one issue left for both Scarlet and Destro. And they've all been good, but I think it'll be nice when there's just one monthly book that's just GI Joe, and it's all building this one same. I mean, they've all been building towards the same story. It's all the setup, and so it made sense what they did. But I'm ready to not have all these series, and I'm ready to just focus on one series. Like I got my GI Joe, I got my Transformers, and I'll be good, right? Because then
Yeah,
that's like
yeah,
it's like every day after school combined into one. It's going to be
yeah.
fantastic. The other book that is on a little break right now, but I absolutely can't wait till it comes back, is Petrolhead.
I haven't heard about that one.
So it's from Image.
Yeah.
It's Rob Williams, I think, is the writer, and oh my
Oh,
gosh,
Rob's great.
I'm
Rob's
blanking
great. Yeah.
on the artist. The artist is insane. It's so good. Um, and it's this future world where there's like an authoritarian government, and to like placate the people and distract them from the fact that they're just being used, they've created these like system of games that's entertainment, sort of like gladiator kind of thing, but it's car races, but all of the drivers are all robots, right? And they sort of have a personality and everything, but based on, it's kind of like professional wrestling, right? Based on the fans' response, then they program which robot is going to win the race, right? It's all controlled behind the scenes, right?
Mhm.
And so that's the premise. And then one of these robots sort of gets consciousness and like breaks away and now is on his own. And well, first of all, the art is so good and the colors are so vibrant, and the artist does the coloring himself, and you don't even like understand how it's physically possible to print such vibrant colors and everything. It's amazing. And but the story, you just like by the end of issue 1, you care so much about the characters, even though they're a robot. You're in hook, line, and sinker. Dude, pick up the trade paperback because it is so good. There's just 5 issues out now, so you're not like far behind. They just did the one story arc, and then the second story arc is going to resume at some point soon. It's amazing.
Okay,
Can't recommend it enough.
I'm definitely gonna check that out because I love Rob Williams. His stuff is great. Yeah, and like that sounds like a really interesting premise. I can only imagine like the art for that would be super interesting. So yeah, definitely gonna check that out.
I'm gonna look right now because if I'm wrong on the writer, I'm gonna be embarrassed. But yeah, it's Rob Williams, and Pi Par is the artist.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. It's like they've been working for a while, but for a lot of us, they're under the radar. And then you read this book, and you're like, where were they hiding all this time? How is this artist this incredible? And I don't know their name, right? That's terrible. Yeah. So yeah, you'll be entertained for sure.
Nice. No, I'm always looking to get new recommendations and stuff. That's awesome.
So what have you been working on?
Yeah, so I actually just recently ran a Kickstarter for my own creator-owned book called Battle Chronicles Soul Striker. We ran a successful Kickstarter, which was good, thank God. And we have an Indiegogo, like that's a second chance Indiegogo now that's live that we're going to have taking more pre-orders up until we ship, which we're aiming to ship in December. The whole book is drawn and done already in that regard, and it's with my colorist right now, and he's coloring it. And so me and my friend Jason Matthews co-wrote it together, and I did all the artwork, and Andrew Dahlhaus is doing the coloring, and he's coloring right now, and Josh Reed's doing the lettering. And it is a science fantasy adventure book mixed with superheroes. So think like, what I've been telling people is think like Final Fantasy meets Gundam meets X-Men is kind of like the vibe of the book. And definitely Battle Chasers and like Zelda and things like that were definitely huge influences on it as well. And yeah, it takes place. It's like this fantasy book. It takes place on a mythical world called Impera, and the setup is that there's been centuries-long war between the Kingdom of Hikari, which are humans, and the Principality of Dracul, which is a race of monstrous creatures called Fomorians. So think like vampires, werewolves, sea monsters, kaiju, all these like monster-like creatures that have their own society, and they're at war with each other. And the story follows the heir to the Kingdom of Hikari, Princess Sakai, and a group of Soul Striker knights who are like the elite guard of this kingdom. They're like the superheroes, quote unquote, of like this world. They're like the elite knights, soldiers of this world, and it follows their adventure as like this war comes crashing on their doorstep, and they're thrust headfirst into it. And it really follows like what happens when soldiers are kind of realize or become disillusioned with like what we've been told all along might not be right. Like the institutions we're fighting for might not be 100% right, and our enemies might not be 100% wrong. And the flip side of the Fomorians is the same thing. They're coming to that realization too, that where do we find the middle ground here? And our heroes are really in this spot that the story is going to follow through the books, is that how do we find peace for everyone and save everyone? And it's sort of this kind of like pacifist book wrapped in a war story that is just filled with action and superhero elements and just high octane as much as you can. Like what I was trying to, the feeling I want to convey with this book was like that feeling I had when I was like 13 coming home from school and watching Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing and like playing Final Fantasy and Zelda and reading those X-Men comics, and just like that fun like feeling that I had and that imagination that was kind of born in me from those books is what I'm trying to convey in this book. And like my approach with it was with all the characters that no matter who you are, one of these characters will be your new favorite character. Like that was my approach. Like I want to make all of them really cool, all of them really relatable and just fun. So yeah, if you like science fiction, if you like fantasy, if you like new concepts and like classic, like with like feelings of like classic superheroes mixed in, like definitely go check it out. It's called Battle Chronicles Soul Striker, and our second chance campaign's on Indiegogo right now. Yeah.
All right, V. Well, thanks so much for joining me. It's been great chatting. It's definitely the most back and forth I've done on any of these episodes yet. So,
oh, cool.
People will probably be tired of hearing me talk and be like, let the other guy talk.
Well, thank you so much again for having me. It was so much fun, and like I said, like it was so cool to finally meet you because like I've been a listener since since I graduated from college. So yeah, thanks for all the years of entertainment and the podcast.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. That's why we do it. So